whether due to not seeing the funny side of an incoming barrage of pointed zingers, or just not appreciating a comedian's attempts to send them up in front of a Saturday night crowd. This bunch of actors were in no mood to relive the times their hard graft was made a mockery of later down the road. Gareth here from Whatculture.com, and here are 10 actors who hated parodies of their work. Number 10, Neil deGrasse Tyson feels there's room for improvement at SNL. While known primarily for his charismatic takes on the universe, world-famous astrophysicist, planetary scientist, and author Neil deGrasse Tyson has actually found himself in front of a cinematic camera on a number of occasions over the years, popping up in the likes of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice and Zoolander 2, to name a few. With a presence and delivery as instantly iconic as deGrasse Tyson's, it wasn't too hard to see why the studios behind said flicks were in a rush to pump his likeness into their incoming blockbuster offerings. However, said traits also left the star open to inevitable parody. Ever the gent though, when nudged on his reaction to Kenan Thompson's Saturday Night Live impression of him, deGrasse Tyson would admit while speaking at the Time 100 Gala that if faced with SNL's executive producer Lorne Michaels, he'd declare, "Lorne, I'm honored and flattered that you would think of representing me, particularly in that context on Fox News. But I think your comedians and actors have more accurately portrayed other people than he portrayed me. So there's some room for improvement." Ouch, burn. Number 9, J-Lo's South Park vendetta. Jennifer Lopez's fury and venom towards the show and creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone in response to their treatment of her on the animated romp that is South Park is pretty much unrivaled at this stage. In fact, according to Matt and Trey when discussing the episode that sees Eric Cartman's offensive Latino stereotype hand puppet version of J-Lo perform a song by the name of Taco-Flavored Kisses, a number of Trey's pals recounted how various folks working on movie projects at the time with Lopez wound up getting fired in the wake of quoting the episode in her vicinity. Regardless of how much the star tried to rid her ears of this irritating tune though, Parker would note she kept hearing it in the distance. More evidence of Lopez's all-round hatred for the pair could be found in the fact that Parker also found himself being stormed past and pushed by the Hustlers star when the two came into contact at a party later down the road. Jenny from the block was simply not a fan. Number 8, Heath Ledger refuses to go to the Oscars due to Brokeback Mountain jokes. It comes as little surprise to discover just how serious the late great Heath Ledger was about his work and respecting the stories he was telling. And it was because of this passion towards protecting the efforts and characters he'd put his heart and soul into bringing into existence that the eventual Oscar winner decided to snub the chance to be in attendance for the Academy Awards ceremony. According to Brokeback Mountain co-star Jake Gyllenhaal, "I remember they wanted to do an opening for the Academy Awards that year that was sort of joking about it, and Heath refused. I was sort of at the time, oh okay, whatever. I'm always like, it's all in good fun. And Heath said, it's not a joke to me, I don't want to make any jokes about it." Of course, the Academy were quick to celebrate the star's contributions by the time his game-changing take on the Joker exploded into cinemas not long after. But Ledger clearly wasn't all too pleased about their intentions to poke fun at a project both men clearly held very dear to their hearts. Number 7, Jennifer Aniston had her tail between her legs post-SNL. Unleashing a comically heightened Rachel Green onto the SNL live crowd during the Weekend update, Vanessa Bayer's riff on Jennifer Aniston's mannerisms initially led to the actor being a little taken aback by the whole scenario. As Aniston would recall to InStyle magazine, "My first response was, what? No, I'm not impression worthy. They played it for me and, this is so not the way I sound." Incidentally, that was not a very good Jennifer Aniston impression. Going further, Aniston would also note that it took some time for her to get her head around the fact that this sort of send-up is seen as a flattering development by many. As she put it, everyone said it was a compliment, but I had to really get my brain around that and tuck my little tail between my legs, thinking I'm being made fun of. That's always the gut instinct, they're making fun of me. Aniston would at least get in on the joke in 2016, rocking up alongside Bayer in an edition of the Weekend update and quipping, "You gotta really try to stop texting me every day." Number 6, Bill Cosby's underground TV show Disgust. Not exactly known for his penchant for telling safe or harmless animated tales, it'll likely not come as too much of a surprise to discover that Justin Roiland, one of the minds behind dark comedy hit Rick and Morty, was causing a stir long before he helped unleash the likes of Pickle Rick on this unassuming world. Years before said Rick and Morty adventures, Roiland was picking up acclaim for his work in bringing a low-budget animated show by the name of House of Cosby's into being on Channel 101. The show centered around Bill Cosby fan Mitchell Reynolds and his desire to clone said comedian en route to creating his own dream House of Cosbys. The quirky show, which involved every 10th Cosby developing superpowers, initially found itself being quite well received. However, the minute the real-life Cosby caught wind of the animation, it was only a matter of time before a death blow would be dealt to this particular house. Sure enough, the New York Times would eventually report that the ultimately shamed star's attorneys sent cease and desist orders to Roiland and Channel 101's administrator Dan Harmon, an act that would lead to the show's eventual cancellation. Number 5. Flea hated Weird Al's tune. While he may have been recently found making a significant splash during Obi-Wan Kenobi, it's safe to say that Flea is more widely recognized for his topless exploits alongside fellow Red Hot Chili Peppers on the music scene. And it was a certain response to his day job that ultimately rubbed the enigmatic rock star up the wrong way in the end, as none other than Weird Al Yankovic's spin on Pepper hits Under the Bridge and Give It Away left a bitter taste in Flea's mouth in particular. As he'd confessed to VH1's Behind the Music upon taking in Weird Al's Flintstone-inspired Yabba Dabba doozy of a parody tune, "I didn't think it was very good. It wasn't that great. Yabba Dabba Doo?" Flea still admitted he was a fan of Weird Al and his works, but everyone's hit and miss, as he also was quick to put it. Number 4. Arsenio Hall isn't into living colour. Thoroughly shaking up a late-night TV scene that had been largely ruled by a Johnny Carson spearheaded Tonight Show for the better part of 3 solid decades, the Arsenio Hall show and its titular host provided a much-needed alternative to a younger demographic. And while this groundbreaking show was responsible for regularly shining a light on the likes of Hall's Coming to America co-star Eddie Murphy, it was also made into somewhat of a gag by many due to the distinct presentation and style that made it so damn popular in the first place. In particular, what would only act as the second edition of eventual primetime sketch show mega hit In Living Colour took aim at Hall and his show during a skit involving the Fox series creator Keenan Ivory Wayans as the host. Painting an image of Hall as a man with a huge rear end and a never-ending need to remind folks he was pals with the aforementioned Murphy, Hall would eventually clap back at the parody via Entertainment Weekly and call it out by stating it wasn't funny and was ultimately a vendetta against him. Number 3. Adrien Brody's issues with Family Guy. In response to being asked by Andy Cohen on his Watch What Happens live show, "Has there ever been a celebrity on one of your shows that you parodied and they did not take it so well?" Family Guy creator Seth MacFarlane was quick to note that one Adrien Brody wasn't over the moon about being on the receiving end of a particularly harsh joke. Coming during a typical Family Guy cutaway bit involving Brody doing sit-ups in front of an audience, taking in one of his flicks in 3D, and his nose proceeding to invade their lives, the creator of the provocative cartoon would note how he wandered up to a displeased Brody to salute his work on the flick Splice at a party later down the line. As he put it, "I said like, hey, I really like Splice. I hope there's no hard feelings." And essentially the upshot was, well, there are some hard feelings, and you can hardly blame him. Number 2. Mark Walberg doesn't appreciate Andy Samberg's digs. This being the same person who strictly gets up at 2 a.m. every single day to ready himself for his first of 2 grueling workouts, it would take a brave soul to take aim at all things Macky Mac. And in one-time cast member Andy Samberg, SNL thankfully had said fearless parody merchant/idiot. In what would act as a rare live appearance from the Lonely Island Brooklyn Nine-Nine sensation back in 2008, Samberg delivered his rendition of Mark Wahlberg talking to animals in the aptly named Mark Wahlberg Talks to Animals. Cue the eventual Uncharted star being mocked for his trademark abrasive, breathy delivery, even sending a "say hi to your mother for me" to an unassuming canine scene partner. And while Wahlberg did admit to MTV News that he loved when people did imitations of him, in regards to Samberg's attempts to make a fool of this Mark's mannerisms, "I didn't think it was as funny as I'd hoped," was his damning assessment. Similarly to Jennifer Aniston, Walberg would eventually get in on the joke later down the road though, confronting Samberg backstage before delivering the aforementioned "say hi" catchphrase a few times for good measure. He's a good sport, yeah, Mark. Number 1. Gene Kelly was not a fan of Clockwork's Singing in the Rain. Without doubt, one of the most iconic tunes ever pumped into a cinema screening. The imagery of Gene Kelly splashing down the street to the sound of Singing in the Rain has become an immortal part of the business of show. However, with such an instantly recognizable piece of music came the potential for a deeply unexpected use of the tune in Stanley Kubrick's unsettling 1971 A Clockwork Orange adaptation, with the song being utilized as the backdrop for a particularly grisly bout of ultraviolence. And as it turns out, Kelly himself wasn't entirely happy about this eventual unveiling unveiling of Singing in the Rain's usage, as revealed by Alex DeLarge star himself Malcolm McDowell at a later stage. Upon being presented with the chance to meet Kelly at a party, McDowell wasn't entirely gutted about being snubbed by the icon, admitting, "Can you blame the poor man? I took his wonderful moment and completely effed with it." Far from being brassed off with McDowell, however, Kelly's widow would later reveal to the actor that Gene wasn't upset with you, Malcolm. He was really upset with Stanley Kubrick because he hadn't been paid. Either way, this movie-making legend clearly wasn't singing in the rain at the thought of A Clockwork Orange's controversial rendition of arguably his most memorable and magical moment.